didn't seem concerned on the phone until we knew how far away we were. Yeah. I said, put your location on. He said, an 50-minute drive or a 14-hour walk. I don't know if it's accurate or not.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head,
The number 4 clue we all missed is caves. This area, because of the type of rock, is like black Swiss cheese, and there are caves all over. And the insight we got from the Scottish hiker was that if he needed shelter, he'd just use one of these many caves. Well, didn't Jay? Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Well, it would also explain why it's not visible, because let's face it, the search thus far has been mostly a visual search. Visual searches have limitations. For example, searches in water. Nicola Bully found after 3 weeks missing. Riley Strain and Kylie Rodney found after 2 weeks. Those are also both water searches. Searches in jungles. Nora Corrin found after 10 days missing. Searches in houses. John Benet Ramsey found in a secret basement in her own house after 7 hours. Meredith Kircher found in her bedroom behind a locked bedroom door, found after it was kicked in. Now, the cave aspect would also be a natural place to seek shelter from the cold and from the wind, especially at night. Now, up until now, there's been an assumption, I feel, that Jay stepped off the road and immediately fell and immediately died. The ITV journalist who retraced Jay's steps made a similar statement. Just it sounds like that, easy to draw that inference. Just days ago, she said that she could imagine that he stepped off the road to take a shortcut, with the implication that he immediately or soon after fell and immediately or soon after died. Someone left this comment on YouTube below my last video, rightly ridiculing this very simplistic idea. Oh, come on. So the guy cuts across the gap between two stretches of road, falls, dies of thirst, and after 12 days of intense searching, no body is found. Yes, it doesn't make sense. So what does? What is a more sensible explanation? Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you're enjoying this analysis, please like, share, leave a comment. Look out for the live stream later today, and let's get started. Now, what will the search strategy be today? That search is about to start in about 2 hours. At 9 a.m. local time, what is the search strategy going to be? Well, presumably after almost 2 weeks of searching, the searchers have not only excluded certain areas by now, but they've also narrowed their search. A lot of buildings have been checked and rechecked and can now be crossed off the list. Also, they've likely fine-tuned whatever initial scenario they started out with into a more plausible working theory. Success on day 13 will depend to what extent this fine-tuning actually makes sense, given not only what we know, but what we don't know. According to another comment, and thanks very much for this one, the strategy seems to be a focus on this area. And let me read the comment. They are doing the Muska Gorge Trail on Saturday, 29 June, that's today. It's reported there's a stream and waterfall. Brian Harrison of Tenerife Ecological Association has said, if he's fallen, it is feasibly possible that he got some water from somewhere, meaning he could still be alive. It's a possibility. And I did actually investigate this, and it is true. If the fall wasn't too serious, he may be to some extent immobilized, but there is water in the area. And so it is possible that he is still alive. It's also possible that he didn't fall and that he was simply out there too long without food and with minimal water, without a signal, and ultimately was so weakened that he crawled into a cave to stay warm or dry, and that's why we can't see him. This is a substantial fine-tuning of the original search alternatives. There are around about 5 different search areas, And the one that is going to be focused on today, as far as we understand, is the Muska Gorge, the area between Muska. It's a very famous and popular hike from Muska to the beach. I think it's called Playa del Muska or something, and back. Spectacular hike, but also quite a dangerous one under certain conditions. Now, the Muska Gorge, as you can see, was initially regarded as a very secondary possibility. They only really went there, I think, as the fourth option. Now, 2 weeks in, it may be that this has emerged as the strongest candidate. And now I want to talk very briefly about searching without a strategy. Have you ever searched for your keys or searched for something just kind of spontaneously, impulsively, randomly? How did that work out for you? Searching without a strategy is nearly as bad as heading off from a bus stop without a strategy. It's likely to cost you a lot of time and effort. To give you an idea how much time and effort can be wasted by searching randomly, well, a few months ago it happened to me. A friend and I did that in Etosha, Namibia. We simply drove around randomly looking for animals. Well, we hardly saw any. We had maps. We just thought we knew better. And the first day was basically a disaster and an absolute waste. It's not that the animals weren't there. It's just that we were moving around in a not a terribly informed way. The next day, obviously, we fine-tuned and improved our approach, and our visit was far more strategic. We made ourselves familiar with the area. We planned our route. Once inside the park, we frequently used a map because there was no cell phone coverage, and we made sure the route basically went from, and this is the crucial thing, waterhole to waterhole. And guess what? We saw plenty of animals, big herds of elephants, lots of antelope, and so on and so on. And so that brings us to the working TCRS theory at this point. Now, obviously, I understand that around about a third of you don't really want to hear it. You want to hear the theory you want to hear. Anyway, the difference between a cogent theory and a hypothetical is how much you decide to ground your theory in facts. And you could say, well, what is a fact here? And also in intuitions. In the Wild West of true crime, many dismiss facts as if they were shopping for a reality in a convenience store or trying on a wand like Harry Potter in Ollivander's. The difference between a good investigator and a bad one is that gut instinct, where you know what information to trust. You don't absolutely know it, but you've got a sense of this is somewhat reliable, I'm going to go along with this, and what not to trust. So in this case, do you put all your eggs into those rogue logins to Jay's Instagram? Or do you rely on what several eyewitnesses said at the scene at the time? And so what do we know? Well, we know that he's young. His friend also said that Jay was laughing about where he was. These are his words. We were both laughing and he said, look where I am. And I said, I've just come out of a festival. And he didn't seem concerned on the phone until we knew how far away he was. And so then there was concern. And then I said, put your location on. And he said, it's a 15-minute drive or a 14-hour walk. This is so important. He said, I don't know if it's accurate or not. And I said, if it's only a 15-minute drive, get a taxi. And obviously, if you focus on the 15-minute drive bit, you're probably going to get yourself into trouble because you're going to underestimate how far you are from where you need to be. So now we know also Jay's state of mind. We know that he was laughing. We know that he was confronted with something that didn't seem to make sense. And how could a 15-minute drive be a 14-hour walk? And so it would be easy to just say, that must be a mistake. And so here we come face to face, toe to toe with Jay's dilemma. He's already walking, he's already off the road, and he's been tempted a couple of times already to take shortcuts already. And so he has to be thinking, if I walk on the road, it's 14 hours. That's if this is correct. But what if I cut through here towards the sea? Obviously, if it's a drive, I could do it quite quickly. The mountains are the tricky part for the cars. They limit where the road can go, but the path cuts straight through. And so I've been taking a few shortcuts. Why don't I just take another one? Isn't that what he was thinking? And then with partial information from his phone, he got partial intelligence on this. He was partially educated. He then made an assumption that was wrong.
So I made a decision and it was wrong. It was a bad call, Ripley. It was a bad call.
His assumption was that once through the mountains, he'd be closer to civilization. And you would actually think on paper that should be true most of the time. But his assumption was wrong because he didn't know where he was. Now, clearly the decision not to catch the bus was the foundational mistake. But the next mistake was to leave the road by taking one, then another shortcut. And then the next mistake was to take a bigger, bolder shortcut to what he thought was a shortcut, doing the gorge hike through the mountains. And so these are our assumptions. And a lot of this is based on looking at someone who actually did this hike. I'll put a link to his blog on that in the description. These are our assumptions. Jay could see the sea peeking through the mountains, and he knew his destination was closer to the sea. In general, further away from the higher mountains. Broadly, this was true, but it was oversimplistic and ultimately not true, given where he was. Next, since he was thirsty, he may have thought of the sea almost in a symbolic way, as a symbolic remedy, in terms of water, but also as a place not in the mountains. He may also have just liked the idea of going on an adventure through this spectacular scenery. Now think about the fact that his hotel is like right next to the sea. It's very close to the sea. So obviously if he's moving closer to the sea, he knows he's moving in the general direction of where he needs to be. Also, he took a shortcut through the mountains to the sea. That was what he was thinking. Next, he may also have reasoned that he could catch a boat instead of a bus from wherever he was going to somewhere else. It's possible that physical hiking maps, they're sort of placed, it might be a paper map that is placed behind glass on a kind of erected structure, prominently displayed in the area alongside the path. You often have that in popular parks. And this map showed this option, for example, the ferry to Santiago del Tigre, that can be caught on the Playa de Masca beach. And so maybe he preferred that idea. And it's likely that he did find and get water. In some photos taken by hikers, one can see water and shelter in the same image. Next, with a little water and shelter, it's possible Jay survived for several days, and it's possible he's still alive, hanging on for dear life. The next insight, but at some point, did something go wrong? Did he make it to the beach mid-morning on Monday and find no one there? Or after deviating off the road several times and then taking one shortcut after another, did he start doing that on this hiker's path, leaving the hiker's path? And although there are perhaps certain places where you could do that, this isn't one of them. A fall off the path would mean he'd quickly find himself trapped and immobile in the wilderness. Next one, but the real problem was exposure. In the day, the heat. At night, the cold. He may have fallen either in an attempt to clamber into a cave or to get to a well or elevated channel. And one of the people who hiked through here said there are a lot of elevated channels, little streams that have been built into the mountainside that are no longer accessible, but you might want to access that if you're thirsty. In order to mitigate the exposure, especially if he had to spend the night in the gorge, well, he would want to find a suitable cave, and also his water needs would go up. And so he would want to be in a cave to dry out and stay out of the wind. Any attempt to return the way he'd come would be frustrated because the trip back was all uphill, and probably by now his energy levels would be minimal. We know that even people geared for hiking that have done this particular hike, the Masca Gorge, have had serious accidents, which has led to them actually closing it in order to make it safer by putting sort of chained areas and just making it absolutely clear where the path was. And also lots of signage admonishing visitors not to leave the paths. did Jay pay attention to these or did he ignore them? Jay fits the category of an unprepared and perhaps irresponsible tourist getting into trouble to a T. Anyway, our hearts and thoughts are certainly with the searchers. They've got quite a big day ahead of them. We wish them well, and let's hope that there is a possibility that there might be a good outcome here. Let's hope that that is the case. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.